This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone, and you can find me and everything you want to know about me or whatever on my website at hikingbob.com, where I have links to my social media, my columns at the Colorado Springs Independent. They're still on hold because of funding. Do me a favor. Go to csindy.com and look for a link on how to join and become a member and a subscriber. That'll help them get back on their feet, and that'll help me get back into writing columns for them, because I have a lot of stuff I want to write about, and I'm just not able to. And if you help out the Indy, they will get me back in there eventually. So sign up there at csindy.com. You can also find a link to my newsletters, which I publish every week, and you can either read them online, there's a link there, or you can subscribe so you get them in your email box. I only send them once a week, except for very, very rare special occasions, and you send them out once a week, and just a compendium of things that happened during the previous week, plus other news articles that come in after we do these podcasts or after I write a column, or stuff that just doesn't fit in either one of those. And you can also send me an email if you have a comment or question about something that you want to hear on the podcast, or a question about something you've heard, or if you have a question about trails or something like that, you could also email me there. So all that stuff is at hikingbob.com. Today joining me is my co-host, Wild Westendorf.
Hey everyone, it's Kevin Wild Westendorf here, and you can find me on my website at www.wildwestendorf.com, and on social media, Facebook and Instagram, simply under Wild Westendorf.
Perfect. And Kevin, glad to have you back here again. I think this is 2 weeks in a row.
Yep. We're
close to setting some kind of a record. Well, you know, we had a lot of really great interviews over the last couple of months. We have some more coming up. And I really like it when we bring people in and they give, you know, their point of view from their agency or their job or something like that. We have one coming up pretty soon about a mobility program to get more people out on trails. Things I'm very much in favor of. Any way we can get more people out on the trails and enjoy them in whatever way, especially people who are not able to go hiking or running or cycling, the more we can do that. So we have, you know, some stuff coming up about that here pretty soon, and there's a lot of things happening with that in the local area to get more people out on trails. All these things I just absolutely love seeing, and we'll be having some people on here to talk about that pretty soon.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I think, you know, we know that we can't make every trail for every person.
Yeah.
And even for you and I who hike a lot, there are places you and I can't go. I mean, there are places that require, you know, rock climbing and rope skills and things like that, that A, I don't have the equipment, and B, they terrify the hell out of me.
Yeah.
You know, so there are places, you know, not everything is for everybody, but the more we can open up as much as we can for as many people as we can, then obviously that's all the better for everybody. It's better for the community. It's better for everybody. So watch for more on that coming up in future podcasts here. Kevin, it's spring. As we know, we can look outside. Things are turning green. I've been taking pictures of wildflowers like nobody's business. If you're tired of seeing wildflowers, do not look at my social media, because that's all I've been posting, and more that's coming. But it's really nice out here. The weather's changing. It's actually pretty warm. You know, we've always said that, you know, you're not clear of the winter weather until Mother's Day.
Yeah.
I think we're probably okay, at least through Mother's Day. Now, something may pop up after that, but it looks like the long-range forecast is pretty good. So we're going to have some nice weather and hopefully a nice and safe spring and summer. But that also brings out the wild animals. And there's been a couple of things that have happened in the last week or so with wild animals and interactions with people that we probably need to discuss. So let's touch on that. So April 29th was a motorless morning in Garden of the Gods. And those are pretty cool events. I was still away. I couldn't be there. But what they do when they have these motorless mornings, they have several times during the summer, is they shut Garden of the Gods down till about noon to all vehicle traffic. The only thing they can get in there is a little shuttle that can take people from the visitor center to, you know, the Central Gardens area, so they can walk around there, and that's all paved, so that's handicap accessible and stuff like that. Other than that, you can walk on the road, you can bike on the roads. There's no cars and everything. It's really a fun time. Well, during this last one on April 29th, somebody spotted laying in a tree right above a trail a mountain lion.
Yep.
An adult mountain lion, a big honking mountain lion. And these things are big, just kind of laying lazily, just resting in the tree.
Just chilling, yeah.
And the pictures, well, let me tell you, first off, I'm jealous as all get out about the pictures. And those pictures, like, I know it's going to be in the Parks Department calendar contest this year. It's probably going to be like 30 pictures of this mountain lion. Beautiful mountain lion. And, a lot of publicity was made about that, and rightfully so. But what I wish there was a little more publicity about was not only about how rare this is, but how, generally speaking, if you see a mountain lion like that, it is generally not a good thing to see a mountain lion just in a tree above the trail you're on.
Yeah.
It's just generally not a good thing. It's generally not a good thing to see a mountain lion in the wild. Let me explain what's going on here. This mountain lion, when they saw this mountain lion, and it was not bothering anybody, it had just killed something, and it had just eaten it.
Oh, okay.
And, of course, it doesn't eat all of it. They believe it killed a deer that was found nearby, and it had eaten it, and it was just up in this tree, A, guarding its food, and B, just kind of digesting. So the reason why it didn't attack anybody was it was tired. It's like you or me after Thanksgiving dinner. What are we going to do? We're going to go take a nap, right?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, this is not a good thing to see something like that. It's exciting. It's great to see one. It's fun to see one. If you're out hiking and there's a mountain lion in a tree looking at you while you're on the trail, this is not a good thing. Because like every other wild animal, and we've talked about this, they don't want to be near you. Mountain lions, like bear, like typically deer, like other animals, will run away from you normally. Now, everybody can point at an exception to that. We'll talk about that. There's always exceptions. So I bring that up because this past weekend I was in Garden of the Gods. I bought a new camera while I was away. I'm still learning how to use this new camera. I'm taking some pictures around sunset. And some guy comes up and goes, "Did you hear there was a mountain lion here?" And I go, "Tonight?" I goes, "Oh, no, last week it was up in a tree." "Yeah, I heard about it. I'm going to go find it."
Oh, what?
Dude, no you don't. And he was earnest. "You want to go take pictures?" I said, "Well, A, it's not there anymore. It's probably long gone. But B, if you see a mountain lion, this is not a good thing. This is not good. They're protecting something, or if they attack a person, it's because they're not healthy, or they're injured, which means they're angry."
Yeah.
And I'm trying to explain to this guy how this was not a good thing. Now, our wonderful park rangers at Garden of the Gods were keeping an eye on things, which is one that was seen there, and making monitoring the situation. That's rarely ever the case when anybody's around to monitor it. So let's just get this into perspective. Was this a really cool event that happened with this mountain lion laying in a tree and people taking pictures? Yeah, really cool. Trust me. If I was home, if I was out there, me and my camera, my big honking telephoto lens I used for a while, I would have been out there taking pictures along with everybody else, recognizing how rare this is. But this is typically not an encounter that you should seek after. And I'm reminded about 10 years ago, there were a couple mountain lions for about a week that were hanging around in another part of the Garden of the Gods. And they were just hanging around there for a while, and people saw them. But they were, and they were not bothering anybody, probably because they, ate a couple deer that were nearby or something like that. But again, this is typically not a good thing to see them. So it's way cool. It got a lot of publicity, but I wish there had been a little more publicity about how typically this is really not something you should be seeing out there, and it's typically not a safe situation. If you see one like that, either it just had dinner or your dinner. Again, very rare for mountain lions to attack people. Extremely rare. They'd rather not. But Kevin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have seen a mountain lion in the wild, but it was just a quick glimpse when it was running across the road that I was driving on, and it was a huge thing too. I mean,
they're big.
Yeah, and I did see one for a moment in the Grand Canyon, and I have seen signs of a mountain lion that was recently in the area, especially the first time I hiked up Bison Peak. It had just snowed, and I was the only one out there. So I was the first one to leave footprints in the snow, and I reached the summit. I'm soaking in the views. It's gorgeous out there with the red rocks and the snow. And then on my way down, I get a few hundred feet down the trail, and I could see fresh snow prints from a mountain lion coming down the side of the mountain from where I just was. And it crisscrossed my path. And then later, once I got to my car, again, I was the only one there all day. I got to my car, and there were like some deer carcass remains and a deer foot.
Right, wasn't there when you parked?
Correct.
Yeah.
It was right next to my car too, in an empty lot. And I was like, "Is this a gift? Like how cats will bring you a dead mouse, or is this a warning?"
I'm bringing you a dead deer.
Yeah.
I had a similar incident hiking in Queens Canyon, which is just off of Rampart Range Road. I did it in one winter, and before they started closing the road down in the winter, and hiked down into Queens Canyon, not all the way down, but I hiked a couple miles down, and there was a little bit of snow on the ground, just an inch or two, not much. And as I come back up, there were mountain lion tracks on top of mine. Near the top of the canyon. Like, okay, where is this? Where was it? Never knew it was there. People will tell you that if you go hiking around here in the mountains, a mountain lion has probably seen you.
Yeah.
A mountain lion has more than likely seen you and watched you and maybe kind of tracked you a little bit to try and determine if you are A, a threat, or B, dinner.
Yeah.
And more likely, it's not going to come after a person. It's very rare. We're too big for them to go after, typically. We're not what they're looking for. Because they take down even a deer, which, to be honest with you, most of the deer around here are not that big. We're not talking about elk size or anything like that.
Yeah.
Even they don't eat those in one day. They eat some of them, they drag them away someplace, and then they go back and eat them again. They're not after people, but they have attacked people, usually the ones that are sick and injured and they can't chase a deer or something like that. So I don't want to say it's never going to happen. It might. But when you see a mountain lion, it's generally not a great thing. Enjoy it if you can, but recognize if you see one in a tree above a trail, I wouldn't stay on that trail. I'd stay back a ways because you don't know what's going on here. So for the person who was wanting to go take pictures of the mountain lion, I hope I talked you out of doing it because it's just like, hey, you're not going to find one. You just can't go out looking for one in the middle of Garden of the Gods and expect to see one. The most you'll see in Garden of the Gods is going to be rattlesnakes, deer, and bighorn sheep when they come down there. Matter of fact, I just gave you a picture that I shot this past January of some bighorn sheep in Garden of the Gods, and you can't go near them. And if you do go near them, somebody's going to yell at you, and the bighorn might take exception to you doing that, which is what they're supposed to do. But in any case, so that's the issue with the mountain lions. The other issue is bears. And there's a lot of bear encounters in Colorado, more than there are mountain lions. Because there's probably way more bears than mountain lions. I don't know the numbers, but there's probably way more bears than mountain lions in Colorado. And we've talked about this before. The black bears we have here are typically not a serious threat to people. The only time they're a threat to people is when there's food involved. And almost every case of a bear encounter with a person has been around food. If food was in a tent and they were backcountry camping, so the bear was trying to get in your tent because it smelled food. It wasn't after you. Or you had cooked over a fire and your clothes smelled like food and your clothes were in the tent. Now, the bear doesn't know the difference between is that food or is that clothes.
Yeah.
That smells like food. All they know is it's something that smells like food and it wants food. Everything bears do is about eating. They eat the heck out of things when they wake up in the spring because they've been starving all winter. Then they eat the heck out of stuff in the fall because they're going to be sleeping all winter. So bear encounters are typically around food. I'm not sure that there's ever been one that hasn't been food related. I'm sure there may have been, but typically it's about food. Bears come into town because they're going after open trash cans.
Yep.
Which is why now Manitou Springs, you have to have bear-proof trash cans or you cannot have them outside until the day of trash collection. Everything in Colorado Springs west of I-25, the same rules apply. You either have to have a bear-proof container or you cannot have your trash cans outside until the morning of your trash collection. It's all about food. They're going to raid food, whatever they can find for food. So this past week, there was an incident down in the Broadmoor Bluff section, which is the southwest corner of Colorado Springs, generally the area on the east side of Cheyenne Mountain and north of Cheyenne Mountain State Park and south of the Broadmoor. Kind of give you an idea where this is, west of I-25, where a bear had entered a house 3 times over the course of, I forget the exact time period, pretty brief time period. Matter of fact, in one case, the homeowner saw that there were bear prints in their house, shut the door, and they came back, and the bear had opened the door and gotten back in the house. And they had to scare the bear away. CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, their people on the wildlife side of things went out there and tried to set traps for it and everything. Were able to capture the bear. And as per their guidelines, if a bear has had close encounters with people 3 times, the bear gets euthanized, which, trust me, nobody wants to see. The people at CPW don't want to see that happen.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, it's part of their job that occasionally they have to put an animal down. So they put this bear down, and nobody wants to see that. And it's because if the bear is that unafraid of people that will walk into a house, it then does pose a threat to people. Well, in the course of the investigation, CPW determines that the reason why the bear was going into this house was because the person who lived in that house, who called CPW about the bear, was also feeding the damn bear.
I can't believe that.
Now, I will tell you that there are people who get upset at CPW every time it has to put down an animal. And it doesn't matter how you logically explain to them why it was, whether it's a mountain lion that's so ill that it can't feed for itself and it's going to die of starvation, it's probably better to put it down. If it's a deer that's been hit by a car, you probably need to put it down.
Yeah.
If it's a mountain lion, that's showing aggression, you might have to put it down. If it's a bear that keeps entering people's yards and you relocate and it comes back, you might have to put it down. This one really got people upset because the person whose house it was entering and who complained to CPW about the bear coming in their house was the cause of the bear coming in their house.
And I don't get why they didn't put the 2 and 2 together of like this bear is breaking in. Maybe it's because I'm feeding it.
You mean the homeowner didn't put 2 and 2 together? Yeah. Well, they did. They also, from what I understand, weren't quite forthcoming with CPW that they were feeding the bear. It took from the newspaper reports I read. Upon further investigation, it said they determined that the bear, the homeowner was feeding the bear. I'm really upset that we had to euthanize a bear because this homeowner's own actions, and a certain part of me is how dare they complain.
Yeah.
About the bear coming in their house because it's their fault that the bear was coming in their house. It just really, and when I mentioned to people the story over this weekend, I was down at Cheyenne Mountain State Park and, somebody said around, do they euthanize the homeowner? I said, well, it might be just a tad on the harsh side. But I understand the sentiment because people were upset. They killed a bear doing what the bear's doing, but because this person was attracting the bear into their house. So a couple of things to learn from here. Again, if you're a hiker, you're probably not going to encounter a bear. You make enough noise. I have seen one bear in the wild hiking. I've seen more bears on roads.
Oh, same here.
Trying to avoid hitting him with my Jeep than I have. The only time you really have to worry about it is if you see baby cubs, which will be coming out. We'll probably be seeing babies pretty soon. Be very aware of that because if you come between a mom and its cubs, that could be a problem.
Yeah.
They're just like any other mom. They're protective of their babies. But otherwise, they hear you coming, they're going to run away. I take Cole with me. They smell a dog, they're going to run away. They don't want anything to do with these other animals or you or me. If you're a camper, do not put food in your tent. If you're in the backcountry and you're parking at a trailer, do not put food in your car because bears have been known to tear the daylights
Oh yeah, when
out of cars.
When we went and hiked Mount Whitney, it was an overnight hike, obviously, and we all had followed this Facebook group about Mount Whitney for weather conditions and closures, and just 3 stories of others in their hikes up there. And just a few days before we left for the trip, someone had posted about how they had accidentally left food in their car at the trailhead. Came back the next day and it was shredded to pieces. Yep. The car doors were severely damaged. The glass was broken. The interior was torn up. Like, it was awful. So I was paranoid. So before I started the trip, I deep cleaned my car because I just, like, I don't know if I accidentally left a snack and it rolled under the front seat of the car or what. But yeah, that's a very, very real thing to be aware of.
I think stuff that's vacuum sealed is probably pretty safe. You can't smell through that, especially if a heavy vacuum seal. And I'm not talking about a Ziploc bag. I'm talking about vacuum sealed. But I wouldn't leave a steak in the car. Yeah. that spare hot dog you picked up someplace that maybe you forgot rolled underneath your seat, probably not a good idea to leave that in there. Yeah, so all these wild animals, everything they do is either food or mating related. And if you don't interfere with one or the other, you're going to be just fine. I shouldn't say you're going to be just fine. Because the minute that something happens, somebody's going to point me.
Oh, yeah.
You're more than likely not going to have a negative encounter. How's that? Is that better? All the lawyers listening, is that better? Your chances of having a bad encounter are reduced if you do not interfere with an animal's eating or mating. And I think you say that about people too.
Yeah.
You say that about people, the answer is probably, oh, that sounds about right too.
Yeah.
That's what this all boils down to. Now, this person who is feeding, they have charged him with an offense. My personal opinion, and CPW has their own things. My personal opinion, they should find other charges besides just feeding the animal. I think they should make them pay for the disposal of the animal. I think it's their own fault. And how dare they be the cause of this animal getting euthanized because of their own actions? It's one thing if a bear comes in and you're not trying to attract it and it gets in, it's going after your trash cans or whatever, and you're trying to do the right thing. Okay, it's an animal. It's got to do its thing. But when you're actually feeding the animal, that's what they allege. Let me get clear, this is alleged. And that's why the officials have to kill that animal. That just really makes me angry. That really, really pisses me off because it's just like there's no reason for that. And you're not supposed to do that. How many times do we have to tell you not to do that? But, there are people out there, just idiots out there who think, well, let's go feed the animals. Let's go feed No, don't feed the damn animals. And it's illegal to feed any big game in Colorado, period, which is deer. Deer is big game.
Yeah.
I have deer that walk in my front yard. I have them on camera. 2 times a week, there are deer that walk through my front yard. I'm not feeding them. Now, they're eating my wife's flowers, which, trust me, does not make her happy.
Oh, I bet.
But, we're not feeding them. They're talking about, we had a neighbor here who, for a while, would dump a bag of peanuts in his front yard every night. And we tried to have something done because he was attracting all kinds of animals.
Oh,
but
I bet.
There was never any big game that came in. He was attracting raccoons and skunks and fox, all of which are small game. Not illegal in Colorado. Let's discuss that at a different date. But what they told us was if you see a deer out there eating the peanuts, then they'll come out and address the issue. I'm just so mad that this person's own actions resulted in the bear being killed. And a lot of people are upset about that. And I think rightfully so. I think if CPW knew about that ahead of time, they should let the bear go in and have at it for an hour. I know they can't do that. I know. I'm just saying. If justice were up to me, wait a minute, you've been feeding this bear? Oh, we're going to let the bear have an hour in your house. Have a nice day. We'll be back in an hour. Yeah. One other thing that came from this, usually they relocate a bear. They try to get it away from where there's going to be people. Typically that works. They tag these bears, put a tag on them so they know who they are and they track their movements. So if a bear shows up again, they can look through their little registry and say, well, this is number 2.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Bear, you get no time. There was a statement made by the wildlife manager in this news release that said, Colorado is running out of places where they can place a bear where it's not going to be near a residence.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea. Now, I'd like to get some clarification. How do you define that? What size of radius? But we're getting so populated that they're running out of spaces where they can bring a bear where it won't be near people. That's a little scary.
Yeah.
Because now, what does that mean? Are we going to have to euthanize more bears because we can't take them someplace where they're safe, which is disturbing. I don't know. There are people who are a lot smarter than me working for an agency that's a lot bigger than I am that know the answers to these questions, and maybe I need to make some phone calls and have some of the wildlife people on here. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Oh, that'd be great, yeah.
And I've had, wildlife managers on here, and they've been very great to talk to and really explain their job. It's not exactly, the hiking part of thing, but it's hunting and fishing and stuff. And obviously it does affect us because we're out hiking where people are hunting and fishing and that's where the animals are. So we could probably get a hold of somebody and talk about that. But that was an interesting comment that was made that they're running out of places where they can bring a bear and not still be near people. I had
no idea.
I'm thinking wilderness areas, but they're not that big. But I don't know. I don't know. There's probably a radius that they work with, and maybe within that radius, just running out of places. So that's the case with that. So wild animals, people, let's just leave the damn wild animals alone. There was just a video the other day up in Yellowstone National Park where a couple of idiot tourists were having their picture taken by walking right up to a bison and getting their picture taken. And a nurse is filming this. She goes, I'm about to go from nurse to first responder because that person's going to get trampled to death by a bison, which did not happen. Whether it's fortunate or unfortunate that did not happen is up to your discretion. But it's like, how many times do we have to tell people to stay away from the bison, stay away from the bears, don't bring food in, don't feed the bears, don't feed any of these wild animals. Pay attention to what you're doing when you're out there. And you're more than likely, I mean, I hike 850 miles a year. I rarely ever see anything other than deer.
Yeah, yep.
I've seen more rattlesnakes.
Same here.
I've seen more rattlesnakes than I've seen bear in the wild. That should tell you something.
So, speaking of wildlife, I have 2 short stories to tell. Mm-hmm. A couple weeks ago, during a rainstorm, I ran out to my car to get something. It was a bag of groceries I forgot to bring in. And I noticed this big thing it's probably a little larger than the size of my hand, was crawling up against the curb next to where I parked. It turned out it was a salamander, and it's our state salamander, official state amphibian. And I had no idea anything like a salamander was a thing around here in the West. I know they're primarily in areas that are very wet and humid, but with like lakes and water everywhere. But yeah, we have an official state amphibian, and it's a something spotted salamander. So that was really cool. I learned something new. So.
I mean, I've seen the little lizard when you go out hiking on the trail.
Yeah.
I've never seen a salamander out
and it was big guy too. And
really?
I live kind of close to Bear Creek, so I think maybe it somehow crawled that far from the creek. Plus, it was raining. Like it was that day where it just rained all day.
I was trying to find Nemo.
I think so. Yeah. So that was really cool. And then the other story I have is, this happened when I was on my way leaving town for the road trip I took to New Mexico back in 2021. It was extremely early. It was just after sunrise, and I wanted to stop at Starbucks on Lake Avenue, so I took a certain route to not have to go out of my way for it, which caused me to drive through an area that's known as the Broadmoor area. And so it's if you're not familiar, it's these massive mansions everywhere. They're beautiful homes. And so a lot of these homes have fences it's a fencing, but it's a fancy kind with like the sharp spires. And
like an iron, like a steel fence or something like that. It's open. You can see through it, but it's... Yeah.
And I was driving by and I see these 2 cop cars. And so of course I got to be a looky-loo and be like, what's going on over there? And I see a deer had accidentally impaled itself on top of one of those spikes on top of the fence, and a bear was feasting on it.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. And
holy cow.
To this day, I regret not stopping to take a photo, because that's something you don't see every day. But with the cops there and stuff, I just didn't want to be a bother, or stopping and someone else sees me stopping and they stop, Yeah, it was one of the wildest, like, wow, nature is hardcore moments I've ever seen. And I'm sure the bear was like, sweet, a free snack. Like,
oh my God. Oh, that's terrible. But it's like I said, when you this mountain lion thing that happened in Garden of the Gods, you should never see that. But when you see it, like, this is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
in some way or another. I mean, I'm envisioning a poor deer stuck on a fence, thought he could jump, couldn't make it, and then a bear just having at it. That is nature in its rawest.
Oh yeah,
would definitely be something to. And when I say appreciate, it's nature doing nature's thing. I mean, obviously, it's probably pretty disturbing. I'm not sure you want kids necessarily to see that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it's nature in its rawest. It's nature doing what nature does. I mean, here's kind of like a cycle of life going on here, kind of a thing. A little man-made intervention with the fence that the deer evidently couldn't quite get over. But well, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, it was
nuts.
Yeah, it's like just definition of nature is metal. I mean, just like it's brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, brutal's actually a really good word for it. That's a better word for it than I was thinking. But yeah, that's crazy. In the Broadmoor, I can see it in the Broadmoor because, like you said, they do have those kind of fences down there. Wow. You didn't get a picture of it, huh?
No, and I just drove by and I saw it and I was like, wait, what? Am I looking at this? Oh my, wow. Like, it's just kind of like it put me in a little bit of shock, actually. It's just because that's not something you see every day.
Oh, sure. Sure, I don't doubt it. It said to be kind of crazy to see. Well, Kevin, I think we've chewed everybody's ear off about wildlife encounters. The wildlife are coming out there. If you take a couple simple precautions, you're going to be just fine. You're more than likely going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Don't bring food in your tent when you're camping. Don't leave open food in your car. They will tear the crap out of your car. There have been videos of bears going through a parking lot, lifting handles, just like the guy who goes down your street and looking for open doors so he could steal stuff from you. I don't know how bears figured this stuff out. They're
really smart. Yeah.
I like to say that I'm smarter than the average bear after all this stuff. I'm not so sure. They're after two things, mating and food. If you don't interfere with that, you're more than likely not going to have a bad encounter. But be careful out there. Don't leave your trash outside. Mine stays in the garage. 31 years of living in this house. There's been one bear reported in the neighborhood, and it was a half mile away.
Oh, okay.
But I still leave my trash inside. The other reason why is I have raccoons like nobody's business, and those little SOB trash pandas have learned how to lift lids on trash cans, so there's that too. But you shouldn't be attracting any of these animals. But the guy who put peanuts in his front yard, who was one of my neighbors, he ended up attracting skunks. We had skunks in the neighborhood all the time, and that brought in raccoons, and that brought in foxes, and foxes are a predator for skunks. Well, guess what the fox stopped doing? Stop going after the skunks, because why should it go after a smelly skunk when they just go over there and feed off all these peanuts the guy put on there? You're disrupting nature doing its thing when you're out doing it. And it's illegal to feed game. And I think maybe the penalties aren't quite harsh enough, especially if it results in an animal being euthanized like it did with this bear. That bear was just doing what that bear was ingrained to do. And because of this person's actions, not only did they were in danger of themselves, because that bear was coming in their house, but then we had to put this bear down. And on the two of these, I'm on the side of the bear because the bear doesn't know better, but people supposedly know better. But even now, after reading all this, I'm not sure who's evolved more, us or the animals. I tend to think maybe the animals have evolved a little better than we have. Kevin, what else you got going on? You got any good hikes coming up or anything? I know you're not going on vacation for a little while yet, but I know you have a trip in July. You're going to be in New Mexico.
Yep, and then a trip to Phoenix in September, and then might be doing a family reunion in San Antonio in November. So
cool.
So I have a little bit of a packed year.
Oh, you got a lot going on. We're going to be camping down in the San Isabel area.
Oh, okay.
By
cool.
Rye in Colorado City. We like it down there. We're going down there in June. Usually go down there in July when the wildflowers are really going and everything. But we're going to be down there in June because I'll be going to Teddy Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota in July. And then in August, we're going down to Chama, New Mexico. You and I talked about that in the last podcast. A lot of trails and stuff that I still want to visit that are down there. So we're going to be going down there. And we're still working on a couple of other things we want to do this year. I'm going to try and get out more and more day hikes. There's a lot of places still I haven't hiked to yet. Of course, it's Colorado. There's never a shortage of places to go.
That's what I call the tyranny of choice.
That's and actually that is a really great, that's a really great description of it. I want to remind people that not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, not a week from, not the day you hear this, but a week from the day you hear this, on the 17th, they're having a open house for the Fox Run Nature Center for El Paso County Parks at the Antelope Trails Elementary School up in Glen Eagle on the 17th from 6 to 7 or 7:30, and that's on Jesse Drive up in Glen Eagle, across from the fire station up there. I posted this on my Facebook page, and I was like, well, of course they should have one up there. Well, that's no longer the question. The question's been settled. There's going to be one there. Yeah. These are more to decide what kind of amenities, where you want it located. It's going to go in Fox Run Park, and what you want to have done there, and what you're looking for, what the community wants. It's I really applaud El Paso County for not just saying, oh, here's your new nature center. They're like asking people what they want. Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool. That's coming up a week from today on the 17th. So, and if you subscribe to my newsletter, which you should, there's a link to that in the most recent newsletter, and I will hopefully, if I don't forget, include it in the next newsletter too, that's coming out the end of this week. Kevin, I don't know, got anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Everybody, so with that, I'll say thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast.
And we'll talk to you later.
Before you go, did you know you can rate and review our Studio 809 podcasts? That will help us, because our egos really need to have thousands and thousands of listeners. But that helps our wonderful sponsors reach more ears too. And we do love our sponsors. So just go to Studio 809 or any individual 809 podcast in your iTunes or podcast app and click on ratings and reviews. Thanks.